Hey everyone, welcome back to Staying Connected, a podcast where I talk to other people about their stories with vascular Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which I also have, also called VEDS. Today I have Brad with me, and I'm really excited to talk with him about his story because it's so incredible. So thank you, Brad, for coming on and sharing your story.
Oh, absolutely.
So how were you diagnosed with VEDS?
Well, so this goes back quite a few years. Back in 2012, I'm the oldest of three brothers, and our middle brother Tim had an, uh, not an aortic dissection, but an aneurysm.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in the hospital, and the conventional wisdom at the time was, as soon as they fixed him, let's get him up, let's get him moving, and things kept popping open. And at that time, there was no thought of testing for this for whatever reason. And he suffered a long time for about 5 weeks, and he finally succumbed to an infection behind the heart due to all these surgeries and operations that he had going on. And it wasn't until, I want to say, last year, August, my youngest brother ended up working for me. He moved up here from the Madison area. We live in a small village called Combined Lodge. We're about 20 miles south of Green Bay, 80 miles north of Milwaukee. But he worked for us, and he looked for a new doctor. And in that discussion to find a new doctor, he brought up my brother Tim, and Jonathan had some minor issues too. Not minor, I shouldn't say. When he was fairly young, before 30, he had a heart attack, and he mentioned that. And the doctor said, we should do some genetic testing.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a free genetic testing clinic or whatever, and he tested positive for VEDS. And then my dad went in. He got tested for VEDS, and I guess, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So I decided, let's go get tested.
Mm-hmm.
And I did. And, it's one of those things where, I'll be honest with you, it was not even on my radar screen. I'm like, what are the chances? I forgot what the odds are, but what are the chances that, both Tim and Jonathan would have it, and then me?
Right.
And just even the I can't even think of a name. Bobby McGivern,
Mm-hmm.
she was a geneticist, and she said, the chances are so slim that you're not. Well, day before my 47th birthday, would have been October 26th, I got the call from Bobby McGivern that I tested positive for VEDS, and it was sort of a kick to the shorts, to be honest with you, because you go home and the worst thing you could do is look stuff up online. Never look up WebMD, because you find out that not only are you dying, but you're already dead. And so my wife was out of town, and she was in Italy at the time, I think, and I thought, let's attack this with a sense of humor. So I called her up and said, life expectancy for VEDS is 48 years old, according to this website right here. I said, it's time for us to start looking for a new husband for you. And just did it that way. Everything in our lives, we've tried to attack with a sense of humor. And it's helped us get through a lot of stuff. That sense of humor, it's the way our family is, wired.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, it's okay to laugh. And if you can't laugh at yourself, you have no business laughing at somebody else. So, that's just how we've always done it. My brother Tim, who passed away, was the funniest person I've ever met in my entire life. And so that's just how we did it.
Wow.
So that was basically it for my diagnosis.
That was back in October last year?
Yes. Yep.
So then you had an aortic dissection not long after that, right?
Yeah, almost. Okay, so I had, let friends and family know, selected few people know that I had this. So, excuse me.
That's okay.
My wife and my two best friends planned a trip for me. And one of my friends lives down in New Orleans, and the two of us, my buddy Mike and I, flew down to meet my buddy Tony down in New Orleans. And we spent, I want to say, 4 days there. Just had a great time. And this was on October 2nd, I believe, that we went down there. And we came back on October 5th. I'm sorry, December, not October. December 2nd, December 5th, we came back. And it was the day after. It was on December 6th. I woke up that morning. I owned a business for 21 years. It was a bar and grill here in Pine Rocks. I went to work that morning, and owning a bar and grill, a restaurant, if you will, is not a stress-free lifestyle. I will tell you that. And you know this for talking to people with VEDS, that it's stress is probably one of the things you need to avoid more than anything else.
Yeah.
Well, I went to work that morning, and I'll be honest, I was mad at what I saw. And my business partner and I, we had a discussion. And as I left, these are words that will haunt me for the rest of my life. And is this a PG show? Because I was just like, you can block this out. But I said, this place will be the death of me someday. And I left. And it was about 6 hours later, I came home. My daughter had her wisdom teeth taken out that day. So I sat down and we watched one of my favorite movies, Interstellar, with Matthew McConaughey. And I love the dynamic between the father and the daughter in that movie. It's something beautiful. And so I sat down with my daughter and I watched that movie, and the movie got over with. My wife was cooking dinner, and I said, I just have to go downstairs. And I was still angry about, what had transpired at work. So I went on the treadmill, which I do. And I started listening to my favorite podcast, Small Town Murder. You're welcome for the plug, guys. And it just wasn't doing it for me, so I turned on the song Uptown Funk, and I started running and singing to it. But the more I did it, the angrier I got. And all of a sudden, boom, I felt this thing in my right leg. And I swear to God, it felt like somebody had snuck up behind me, doused my leg with lighter fluid, and lit it on fire. Now, through conversations with my brother Jonathan, I had asked him, what am I looking for as far as, am I going to tell if this happens?
Yeah.
And she mentioned something similar to that. So I was right away concerned. Well, as the moments went on, just quickly, boom, 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 I was losing all feeling in my leg, and I tried to, my wife and daughter were upstairs. I tried to yell out up to them, but I couldn't. And things in my head, I was having an aortic dissection. I just, for whatever reason, I knew it. Well, I was downstairs in our lower level, and we had just recently put in a stair lift for our youngest son, Arthur. Arthur has cerebral palsy. He cannot walk, cannot talk. He's fed through a tube, given 9 different meds 3 times a day. He's a pretty special kid. He's just incredible. Well, we just put that stair lift in, and Arthur happened to be downstairs watching a movie, and that stair lift was downstairs. I crawled onto that stair lift, and I hit the button, and it brought me upstairs slowly but surely. I got up to the top, and my wife thought I was Arthur. She went to grab, came over by me. She noticed it was me, sort of laughed at me, but then I fell right in front of her, and I started flopping around like a fish out of water, saying, I'm in pain. Well, she dialed 911 right away. Actually, not, because I'm a guy, like, oh, it'll be fine. Just rub some dirt on it, You're waiting for it to subside, but it didn't. And so she dialed, 911, and the first responders were here immediately. And then the local sheriff showed up, and the sheriff's deputy was a friend of mine, Jim Burke. I used to work with him, delivering furniture years ago. Mm-hmm. And he understood that there was something else. He's known me long enough, and he got the ambulance there so fast. And I don't know how he did it, but by the grace of God, I guess you want to say, he did. And that ambulance there, the paramedics could not have been nicer. They gave me a shot right away to ease the pain. And basically, we got to the hospital. And so I'm laying in the emergency room. Mm-hmm. And they weren't screwing around. They wanted to do a CT scan right away and, make sure. But the one thing they wanted me to do was calm down. I couldn't stop swearing for whatever reason because I knew what was happening. I just knew it. So, so they got me in the CT scan, and he just said, "Sir, I need you to calm down. Look at me. When you see, I'm calm right now. When you see me start to worry, then you can get worried." It was about 4 seconds later that his face looked like, oh my God, this guy is dying in front of us. Oh, well, what was happening was my aorta was basically becoming unraveled in real time, and they were seeing it. Basically, it started from my leg and was working its way up. And we talked about maybe flying me to Milwaukee, airlifting me there, whatever. But there was a surgeon there, Dr. Asid Ali. Dr. Ali is his name. Mm-hmm. And he came in and said, there is absolutely no time. We will put you on that helicopter, and before we take off, you will be dead. So, that decision was made right there. And he made us sign some papers, and he said we have about a 3% chance.
Wow.
So I looked at my wife and my 2 kids, Jack and Sophie, the oldest 2 were there, and I said, I was born in this hospital. I guess I'll die here. My wife said, you're not dying today. And you're not dying tomorrow either. Oh. So immediately they started prepping me for surgery. And I woke up on the table and they had a saw in their hands. I'm not kidding you. I'm like, oh boy. No. They put me right out again. And the surgery lasted about 12 hours. And because of what they had learned, from what happened to my brother and, years had passed, they understood the disease more. They kept me in an induced coma for 9 days. And in that coma, I saw my funeral. Everybody wonders, did you see a light? Did you see this? Nothing I saw was of the angelic type. Pretty, brimstone-y, it was pretty scary stuff. The stuff I saw. All things. My Aunt Nancy was there, and she kept trying to guide me toward a light, whatever. It's surreal. The stories I could tell. I swore to God that Walt Disney himself was lying next to me in my bed. And the reason why is I believe or not, I believe, I just read a book about the life of Walt Disney right before this happened. So what I believe is you take in all the things that you have in that situation, and that's what you're dreaming about or thinking about.
Yeah.
It was around Christmas time. I believe that I was in a room with Christmas trees everywhere, and my aunt kept trying to come on, let's go to the door, and every time we got close to the door, the room would move up, and I would slide backwards, and I could never make the door. And in a way, I'm glad I never did, because all of a sudden I started hearing voices, my name being called.
Mm-hmm.
And 9 days later, I woke up, and there was this beautiful girl sitting next to me. And I had no idea who she was. And she just kept saying, "It's okay." And I thought I had caused an accident. I could not remember what was going on.
Yeah.
And I thought that I had caused harm to others. And that was the worst feeling in the world. And my wife will attest to this, that for 4 days in a row, she came in, and it was the same story. I did not realize where I was. I thought I was still in New Orleans, as a matter of fact. And she had to explain to me that it wasn't my fault. I did nothing to, cause harm to anybody. It was surreal. As a matter of fact, I thought the last bar we were in New Orleans was a bar called The Dungeon. And I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's like a cheesy 80s rock video, heavy metal video. And they say no photos, no photos. Well, at the end of the night, I took a photo, and I thought these people had me killed. I was in New Orleans. And so I kept trying to get and I couldn't talk. You have to understand, I was incubated, my throat was killing me, all this stuff. And I kept trying to tell my dad, you got to call the local sheriff and have this hospital investigated, because things were so unreal. It was just, one of those things. And I ended up in the hospital for nearly 20 days in ICU. And in that time, I'd lost 66 pounds. You're not moving. You're wasting away.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. I was living. So, and then, I want to say it was 1 year ago yesterday, I was released from ICU, and I was sent to a nursing home, which is about 2 miles away from where I'm actually sitting right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it was beautiful, because I got there, and my daughter had decorated my room at the nursing home like I was at home.
Oh.
And she put up a Christmas tree, and she had my quilt and my pillow.
That is so sweet.
Not bad for a 16-year-old girl, huh?
That's a pretty sweet 16-year-old.
You better believe it. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, but it was at the nursing home. To me, that was the most painful thing, because at the end of the night, everybody went home, and I knew my wife and kids were 2 miles away in our house, and I had to go to sleep alone every night. I hate that.
How long did you have to stay there?
About 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Yeah. I had to learn how to walk, how to talk, how to use my hands, all that good stuff again. I was, that was the one thing about my, the surgery. It was 12 hours long. I lost a lot of blood. They didn't know who was going to come out of there.
Yeah.
It was going to be, it was going to be Brad or Brad 2.0,
For some reason, when you say that, I think of like the Terminator. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm the Terminator, all right. So
I'm so glad that you survived that. That's incredible.
I cannot express, what it's like to, go through something like that and come out on the other side okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
So how have you, I know that, I mean, it has to be incredibly hard having this diagnosis, and I can't even imagine, like, if I had had a major event like that right after I found out that I had VEDS, like, how has that changed your life? Like, how do you cope with that?
um, it depends on the day. Some days I cope better than others. Um, so I had mentioned before, I had owned my own business for 21 years, and I was good at it. As a matter of fact, right before I was diagnosed, I received basically a lifetime achievement award from the county that I have um, my tavern in. And just this year, I received that same award from the state of Wisconsin.
Wow.
So I'm obviously it's good at it, and I loved doing it. I'm a very social person. I have to be amongst people to be happy,
Yeah.
and because of the stress and the situations that I put myself in, I was an owner of the place, but I was more of a grunt worker. I was the plumber, the carpenter. The things that need to be get done that nobody really notices or cares to know about. That was me, and I could not do those jobs anymore. So I had to sell the bar, and to be honest with you, I was very ugly, and my wife, she meant, how do I say this? She wants what's best for me.
Mm-hmm.
And what's best for me is to not own that bar. But I fought her. And I'll tell you what, this has been hard on our marriage, hard on us. Here's this person who you wake up next to, she's holding your hand, and she, wants what's, best for you. And here I am fighting her on this. And I feel like a failure, not in just the respects of how I lost the bar, but how I treated her, going against her.
Yeah.
When she was looking out for the best in me or for me. So that's tough.
Yeah.
That's really tough. And so, I pretty much, I didn't give up, being around people. I traveled a lot this last year. We started, our first trip was to Florida. I want to say that was in April. Then we went to California in June. July, I went down to Atlanta, Georgia. August, I went to Hawaii. We went to Hawaii as a family.
Oh, nice.
Got back. I went back down to New Orleans. And then I was invited by a group called CORE, Children of Restaurant Employees, who they had gifted our son Arthur a Disney cruise. And I was invited, my wife and I were invited to speak at One World Trade Center on the 102nd floor. I got to give a speech.
Wow.
Well, in 1 year, sorry,
That's okay.
I went from pretty lowest of the low to about as high as you can get. And I consider myself, I don't want to say blessed, because very fortunate. I have a hard time with blessed, but.
Well, that's amazing. I'm really glad that you've been able to do that this year. It has to be, I mean, I can't imagine the low of that and then having the high, like, and being able to travel. I mean, did that help?
Oh, absolutely. It helps, but it's also very expensive. So I'm either going to have to, curtail my traveling or find a job. But we're fortunate enough where, it's not about the money or anything like that, but I'm going to have to find something to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, let me take you back. Since you were 47 when you were diagnosed.
Correct. Yes.
I mean, that's pretty late in life to be diagnosed with VEDS. Or is there anything that happened when you were younger that was due to VEDS that you just didn't know?
Yeah. Well, here's a funny story. So about 15 years ago, my dad and I, we owned the bar together. Bought a TV, and I'm just too cheap to pay for the delivery. So we put it on the back of my pickup truck. It was a big screen TV, and we would normally give it away for the Super Bowl. Well, we were bringing it back to the bar that I owned, and lifting it off the truck, and it slipped, and it snapped my neck back. Well, 4 days later, I got rushed to the hospital and found out that I had a torn carotid artery, and I had a 6-inch clot up in my brain.
Wow.
Yeah. And at that time, we just thought it was a fluke. Nobody mentioned anything about VEDS or anything like that. And, then my brother Tim passed away. Then the whole story, who brought up the speed. Well, when they were operating on me, they noticed inside brachial arteries going into my, up into my neck were kind of screwed up. And they say that was an obvious sign that maybe they should, or, I don't know. I'm not going to second guess something that happened 15 years ago. And,
yeah.
Talk about the ultimate Monday morning quarterback. I don't want to be that guy. But so that was part of it. And I remember as a kid, too, my brother Tim and I were pretty skinny kids. And I remember people making fun of us because you could see the blood vessels through our chest. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And and at the time, we just really never thought about it. Why would you? But obviously, these are signs to look out for. My brother Tim was double jointed, I guess you would call it. Things like that. So he had more of the signs than I did. But again, that's second guessing history, I guess. I know it's easy to do here, right now, but. At the time, my mom and dad didn't know. And then a family history, my dad's mom, it was obvious who we got it from because he's been diagnosed with it, but his mom died at age 61 of an aortic aneurysm. And, at the time, nobody thought of it. So... But, history just keeps on repeating itself in this family, apparently. So,
wow. Did you have your kids tested?
Yeah. Jack, who's 18 years old, is negative. He does not have it. Sophia, who is 17 years old, is negative. She does not have it. Arthur, who is 14, does have it, unfortunately. But, Arthur has cerebral palsy. Like I said, can't walk, can't talk. Fed through tube, all this good stuff. In a way, I don't want to say it's a good thing, but it ends in our family with him. Yeah. Jack and Sophie, from my understanding, cannot pass this along. So
yeah, it's an autosomal dominant gene.
Yeah, and my wife had me fixed for one of my birthdays. I forgot which one it was, but what a present! I'm not kidding you. She had we were friends with the doctor. She had a gift certificate made up and everything.
Oh my gosh, that's hysterical.
It is.
Well, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
I don't know. I think I've covered everything. Do you have any questions for me?
I wanted to express how grateful I am that you shared that with me and with everybody, because I know I could hear how difficult it was to repeat for you. And I really appreciate you sharing it with me.
Well, it's difficult, and I guess the emotion comes from me wanting to express my gratitude, my love, and to my wife and to my kids, my mom and dad, my brother. Heck, the doctors and the nurses. Oh my God, I couldn't, you know, yeah, I'm so grateful. I'm just, thank you.
I really am so glad that you survived that and got through it, and it's very special.
Thanks. Some mornings you wake up and you're like, yeah, well, did that really happen? It's tough, even a year later, to wrap your head around it.
Yeah, now it's been almost just about right at a year.
Actually, yeah. Last week Saturday was a year that I woke up from the coma, and then yesterday I would have been shipped over to the nursing home. So yeah, we're getting there.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you again for sharing your story.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
And thank you, everybody, for listening. This was Staying Connected, a podcast where I talk to other people about their stories with VEDS. This was Brad sharing his story, and I am so incredibly grateful for it. If you want to hear more episodes of this podcast, please subscribe to the channel. This is a monthly podcast, comes out on the last Sunday of the month. So thank you, and we'll see you soon.